Code. I'm very excited to be here with everyone tonight. Again, my name is MK Comer. I'm a Women Who Code Leadership Fellow. I've had the pleasure of putting on a lot of these events over the last year. To kick us off, whether or not this is your first webinar with us, or if you've been to many of our webinars, welcome. I'm here to give a warm Women Who Code introduction and share what we are all about, or maybe how you can get involved with Women Who Code. And then I'll pass the mic off to our incredible speakers. Both Ria and Aishwarya are here tonight with us, or this morning for them, here to talk about introduction to front-end design, web design. So that being said, feel free to introduce yourself via the chat. We will be doing Q&A via Zoom Q&A. If you have not used Zoom before, there's Q&A functionality that allows you to submit questions. It's helpful for us to kind of keep track of the questions along the way. So please submit those throughout the webinar in the Q&A, and we will take care of getting all those questions answered to you at the end. This recording is being posted to YouTube. All of our recordings go to YouTube. It's a way that everyone gets to relearn, or if you want to share it with a friend. And those will be posted about 3 to 5 days following the event, and I can send that link along towards the end. That being said, Women Who Code is here to present an introduction to web design. We have Aishwarya here. She's a senior software engineer with over 9 years of web and application development experience, and she is passionate about building scalable applications and solving complex problems. She is an alumni of NUS Singapore and currently works with Adyen as a senior full stack developer. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. So excited to have you. And her partner in crime here tonight is Ria. She is an implementation manager who advises global merchants on the best ways to integrate and build scalable solutions. With software engineering background, she's passionate about technology and software development. Welcome, both of you. Thank you so much for being here. And today we're going to learn about how to build a simple personal web site using Bootstrap, HTML, CSS as we cover web design basics. That being said, before we start, I'm going to give a little Women Who Code background and introduction. For those of you, if it's your first time with us, our mission at Women Who Code is to inspire women to excel in technology careers. And we really envision a world where women are equally representative as tech execs, founders, VCs, board members, software engineers, lead engineers, you name it. Our code of conduct, we are very serious about our code of conduct. So please adhere to the code of conduct throughout this webinar. All of our events, including this webinar, are intended to inspire women to excel in technology careers. And anyone here for that purpose is totally welcome. That being said, we support our community regardless of gender, gender identity, express sexual orientation, gender expression, ability, physical appearance. And as we do like to joke, preferred programming language, we are an inclusive community, so welcome. And our general target audience and engineers we bring in are engineers with 2 or more years of experience looking to support and resources to level up and strengthen their career. I've heard testaments for many engineers that Women Who Code really helped them make their next move at their next job or help them learn a new skill set that they had never had before. So we welcome everyone. And our movement in the last year, as things have drastically changed and continue to change with the pandemic, we hope we've been a connecting force for all of you and continue to do so as the world continues on and has been asked to isolate in all different areas of the world. That being said, we have 250,000 members around the world, which is so exciting. And we have 70 networks in 20 different countries, but of those members, they make up 120 different countries that join us for all of our different remotes like this one. Additionally, we do annual events and hand out conference tickets and scholarships. And we also do have a job board. So if you're interested in another job, feel free to access our job board and different resources to help you make that pivot to your next career. Tonight, you're here with Women Who Code Front End. If you're not familiar, we have 6 tracks that were launched in 2019. Each of these tracks have different kind of like tech talks, workshops, tutorials. Obviously with front end, we have a lot of front end focused talks or sometimes back end talks, but we also have data science, mobile, blockchain, Python, and cloud. So if you're interested in other areas of technology, feel free to check it out at womenwhocode.com/digital. And if you're looking to get involved, one of the joys of my job is also working with our volunteers around the world who help put on events like this and help bring in events like this. My name is MK, as I introduced at the beginning of the webinar. Feel free to reach out to me directly if you're interested in volunteering with us, or if you're interested in any of those tracks I listed, feel free to reach out to those at womenwhocode.com. Additionally, if your company is interested in partnering with us to put on an event like we are tonight, you can reach out to our partnership team and they'll help align you to the right track to kick off your webinar. One note to bring up, we are hiring. So we are hiring for leadership fellows, which is the current position I'm in. Unfortunately, our 1-year-long leadership fellows are coming to an end, and we're looking for new fellows to continue to bring these tracks forward. So if you're interested in meeting a bunch of people, working with your volunteer team, putting on different webinars, and being further involved in the Women Who Code community, definitely look at womenwhocode.com/careers. Or reach out to me directly if you have questions about it. I've really thoroughly enjoyed my experience in working with this community so far. That being said, I'm more than excited to bring to you both Aishwarya and Ria here to teach us about simple personal website building with Bootstrap, HTML, and CSS. Welcome, and audience, please give them a warm welcome and feel free to submit your questions Q&A. I'll be jumping back on to help with Q&A at the end.
Thank you, Mary, for the kind introduction, and thanks for the quick overview of Women Who Code. It's really amazing what you guys do. So a very warm welcome to all our participants. Can you all see my screen? Yeah. Okay, I'll take that as yes, because there are no no's. So, okay, yes, we are going to cover introduction to web design. And before we start, how about we do a quick poll to get to know you guys a tad bit better. So Mary Kate, if we can have the poll, please. We have 2 quick questions, and it would be great if you can submit your responses to that.
Are you able to see the response? If you go down to polling, I believe you should be able to see the responses.
Short.
Oh,
yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you everyone for recording your responses. So some of you are indeed familiar with Bootstrap, and most of you here are newbies, which is good because we are going to start right from the basics. So okay, without further ado, let's get started. Sorry for the technical difficulty. Sorry, just give me a minute. Are you able to see the screen again? Ria, you can see my screen?
Yes. Yeah, I'm able to see your screen.
Yes, very sorry about the technical difficulty. So moving on, like if you are a complete beginner and you have to start web design right from the scratch, where do you begin? So HTML and CSS are the absolute building blocks that you need to know if you have to do any kind of web development. Let's try to understand what they are. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It is used to create the actual content of your web page. So every element that you see on the web pages, like the input field, the text boxes, the select buttons, the buttons like the submit reset here, or the radio buttons, anything that you see, even the text HTML form, it's all rendered by HTML. So HTML will create the content of your web pages, but it's all black and white and dull, not so nice. That's where CSS comes in. CSS stands for cascading style sheets. So as the name suggests, it is used for styling your web pages. Now your black and white HTML has now been transformed into something like this using CSS. So CSS is responsible for the presentation, formatting, layout, visual effects, background color, everything. It has a rich, it gives you fonts, colors, and everything that is going to make your page look nice and pretty. So now it does look nice indeed, but it's still static. How about you want to have some sort of validations? For example, in the email field here, you only want users to enter a valid email. I know something that conforms to the format abc.xyz@gmail.com. Or in the phone number field, you would only want them to enter valid phone numbers or digits. And if they enter text, you want to alert them and say, hey, it's wrong. Can you please enter the correct value? So that's where JavaScript comes in. JavaScript is now a programming language and it is used to control the behavior of different elements. So all these form validations that I was talking about can be rendered with the help of JavaScript. So you can see here that username is a mandatory field and it's missing. So all those errors are being highlighted. You are being asked to choose and etc. Apart from that, JavaScript is a very powerful programming language. So it can help you make your pages dynamic. For example, you're booking a plane ticket and you enter the traveler's information, and then you want to enter the second traveler details. And you probably remember different websites do it differently, but you'll have either a plus button or a plus icon or an add button that you click on that and it pops up another set of fields where you can enter the second traveler's information. You want to change something, remove something, you click on that remove button and all those fields just go away. So with the help of JavaScript, you can dynamically add and remove fields on your website. This is the power that JavaScript gives you. Hope we are okay so far. So just to recap the whole thing, HTML is used to create your web pages, CSS is used to style it, and JavaScript would make it do things. Now, theoretically, if you know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you should be able to build any web page or any website that you want. However, there are multiple challenges. So you designed your website on your laptop and it was looking like really nice and pretty, and then you try to access it on the mobile phone and it's almost unreadable, like you see on the right side of the screen. Or another challenge many web developers face is to ensure that the look and feel of the website is uniform across the browsers. Why that happens is normally you would use the browser defaults to render the web pages, and every browser does it differently. And for some fields, the difference is more pronounced, especially for the radio buttons and checkboxes. As you can see across the 4 browsers, the look and feel is different, both for selected and unselected ones. And then there are basically many other challenges. You struggle with CSS, where you have one label flying around and one field is to the extreme right, and all these kinds of problems. Well, don't worry, Bootstrap to the rescue. So Bootstrap is the most popular. This is the official definition, and I quote, "It is the most popular HTML, CSS, and JavaScript framework for developing responsive mobile-first projects on the web." So I guess by now you understand what mobile first means. We would want our websites to be readable and usable on mobile phones because these days a lot of users would be accessing your page on the mobile or on screens of different sizes. So we have to ensure that our website works across the browsers. What is responsive? A responsive web page is one that auto-adjusts itself when it is accessed across the devices. So like you see the animation playing on the right side of the screen, as the device changes, the content and the different elements on the web page are realigning themselves so that they are still readable and the website is still usable. All these things Bootstrap would give you out of the box. Okay. Continuing on, why Bootstrap or why it is so popular? Well, it is a front-end framework, which I mentioned earlier. So what is a framework? A framework is a collection of classes and libraries that has been designed to make your life easier. So all these issues, the generic problems that we discuss, which exist with all the web pages, that it should be responsive, it should be compatible across the browsers, etc., is being taken care by the Bootstrap. And then you, the developer, don't have to write thousands and thousands lines of code to ensure the compatibility or ensure that it's responsive. And you can focus on the design and layout and the logic of your website. Okay. And since it's a front-end framework, it comes with a lot of built-in CSS and JavaScript templates that will help you build your web pages that are aesthetically appealing. Bootstrap has a very rich library of components, which we would be covering later during the section. So later during the session. So anything that you might need for your web page, the input boxes, the form validations, the tabs, maybe a table to display the list items, the text to hover, anything that you can think of, well, you name it and Bootstrap has it. We already discussed the browser compatibility, and last but not the least, it's open source and free and very well documented. So it is possible for a complete newbie to go to Bootstrap website and learn it from the scratch, and be able to spin website in a matter of weeks or days, or maybe even an hour. So let's give it a try. Okay, this is the personal website that we are going to build. This is a web page of this lady called Amy Young. You see there are the menu items on the right side: about me, portfolio, and contact. These are all clickable. So when you go on that, you would visit the relevant section on the web page. There's this image carousel, which keeps changing. There are multiple images of this lady, Amy. The bottom, and this is how our website looks on the phone. So the menu items have become a hamburger. The about me section content has realigned itself, and it still looks nice and pretty and of course readable. At the bottom part of the page, we have this contact section where you can contact Amy either on her LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, or you can write an email to her. And when you click on that email icon, it would open a model window where you can type your message and send it across to her. Actually sending the email, a little disclaimer here, we will not actually be sending the email. That's outside the scope of this webinar, but we would show you how you can load this model using the JavaScript. Okay, so how do we start then? How do we go about building it? You need, of course, you need Bootstrap to build a Bootstrap website. So you can get it using a package manager. Package manager there are multiple ways of doing it basically. So package manager is a software tool that would automate the installation or configuration of your dependencies, the project dependencies. So in our case, those dependencies are the CSS and JS libraries that the Bootstrap would need to render those pretty responsive web pages. An alternative could be to you guys must have used some package managers like maybe Node npm is a popular one, or Ruby gems. But let's say we don't want to go there, then an alternative could be using a CDN. CDN stands for Content Delivery Network. So as the name suggests, these are geographically distributed a network of servers that exist to serve content to the people. So in our case, that relevant content would be the CSS and JS libraries that are needed by the Bootstrap. JS Deliver is a very popular CDN for Bootstrap. A third option could be purely for the learning purpose to use an online editor. The thing with online editor is they are responsible for getting all these dependencies for you. You just have to select what you need, and you can see the results visually. As soon as you make a change, you see the impact. So that is something that really gets me going. So are you guys ready? Excited? Of course you are. I mean, you are here to build cool websites and not to listen to all this boring theory, right? Ria, can you please take over and introduce us to Bootstrap and show us how to code? Yep.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Aishwarya. So now I'll be sharing my screen. Okay, are you able to see my screen now? Okay, oh good. So let's kick start. So inside our chat, MK has already shared some of the documentations that we'll be using for this part of the webinar. So as you can see on the left side, this is the documentation that we'll be referring to, which contains the resources that we'll be using for this webinar, and also some of the introductions where we will talk about on the Bootstrap on different components and also the layouts. So during our coding session, we'll also be using some of the images. So instead of you looking for and searching on the website to just find a simple images, we have already provided them. So you can just copy and paste over during the coding session later on. And lastly, we also provided a font, which you can just copy and use it immediately during our coding session. So let's get started. So when we talk about the web design, the first thing is that we need to wireframes our designs. So there are a couple ways that you can do with your to start with your prototyping. So the very, very basic and a simple way that you can get started is just to take out a piece of paper and a pen, and you just draw on the paper. You just draw on it. And Sneakpikit is one of the open source websites that basically provide you the template of different browsers and also the fonts. So you can just download it and print it onto the paper and then just draw it accordingly. And let's say if you want to go for fully digitalized, there are also a couple of ways, like such as using the Sketch, Balsamic, where you can just drag and drop the components into the applications and then change the fonts and to start with your layouts. So for today, since our course, we are not going to use this. We'll use a final website, which is at the right side as prototyping on our coding webinar. So let's get started on actual coding itself. So to start with the Bootstrap, first of all, we will be using the official Bootstrap documentation, which is Bootstrap 5.0.2. So you can click onto the Bootstrap documentation. So we could recommend in this session, you also open up another Windows, one with two windows, one with the Bootstrap documentations, and another one you can just deviate, which we will share and using the online code editor later on. So to give you a brief introduction on the Bootstrap website, it provides a very rich information, like for example, how to install it into your local machine. They provide all the instructions, and then you can just put copy over and run into your terminal and run it, and then it will be automatically downloaded into your local server. However, if let's say if you don't want to do any downloading, there's another quick way as suggested by Aishwarya. You can just use CDN and then you simply paste over the hyperlink over here, the links tag and also the script tag into your HTML. So what's so special about the Bootstrap? So let's say if we did a deep dive into the Bootstrap itself on a source code, you can take a look at the right side. So for Bootstrap, the CSS itself, it actually protects all kinds of like content and also the styling by default. So it basically takes all the heavy liftings of your styling. You can see there are even like thousands of code that have already done the automations and the styling and make it responsive for all your projects and your front ends. So to take it into the actions, in this course, we will be using Codeflight. So you can go back to our documentation at the left side. You can click on the second link, which is the Codeflight, which will link you to the pages at the right. And to here, we'll be using Codeflight as an online editor to keep our coding. And you can follow through and then build your own website with this Codeflight. So to get started, how we are going to use Codeflight is we'll create a new ply. All right, hopefully you're following through, and then click on Codeflight itself. And then on the right side, because we want to see we make it very more responsive, so we will change the layout for this project into the vertical. So we can adjust the screen size dynamically to see what's the effect, let's say if it's a bigger screen or if it's a smaller screen. And today we'll be focusing on HTML and CS Bootstrap. So using this, so we will minimize the rest of these sections. So we'll just leave it as a HTML. So because of this Codeflight, it only has a HTML so far. So we want to ideally adding some of the bootstraps into this Codeflight. So there's this settings section. You can click on here. And then you can give some of the naming of your project. For example, Bootstrap, Bootstrap demo. And then for the framework that we're using a Bootstrap 5.0.2. Okay, and then after that, then we click on save. Okay, you can see the purple icon over here showing that we'll be using Bootstrap 5 now. So we want to verify whether indeed the Bootstrap 5 is already working in our template. Then we go back to the Bootstrap documentation. And then inside the docs, we just find a very simple items like just a button to see whether it is showing exactly the same as the one in the website. So we can go to the button sections. So we click on this blue button, which is the primary. We can just copy and paste it over. And then we simply, if you want to see the outcome, you just simply click on the run. All right, so now we can verify that the Bootstrap is already indeed working in our Codeflight templates. Now we already have all our online editor ready. Then we will kickstart doing our actual codings. So we will use Amy Young as an example of the website that we'll be prototyping on. Okay, so first of all, when you come to see this, for the Bootstrap, the basic layout that you will be used for Bootstrap is so-called a container. So all the Bootstrap elements are built on top of the container, and then you will be a boot building box. But as you see from the documentation itself, there are a few types of containers available. So what are the differences, and which one do you want to use during your sessions? So for here, let's do some of the demo on what are the differences between of them and which one do you want to choose in your actual projects. So in here, I have come up with some of the container in which I have already declared a div and then also input a container. So by default for the container, the size of the alignment of the text will only be changed at each breakpoint. What do I mean by breakpoint? The breakpoint as defined inside the Bootstrap documentation is that if we reach a medium screen, we will change it once. And then with a larger screen that is more than 992 pixels, we will change it once. So let's see them in action. So you can see on the left, bottom left here, each shot is at 842. So currently we are at a medium screen. And then if we change it to be a larger, yeah, then we change the alignment once. But let's say, but when you are reading a text and then when you are adjusting the screen, ideally you don't want to be like a sudden jump. You want to have a smooth transitions of the layout. So Bootstrap also provide another option called container fluid. So you can see here, we change it to the container fluid. So let's execute this code again. So now we have another sections of the container fluid. So let's adjust our screen. You can see that as long as we change at any point of time, it will always adjust the alignment of the texts. So for throughout these courses, it depends on individual preferences. Well, for me personally, I like to have a smooth transitions of all my layouts. So for this course, we'll be mainly using the container fluid during our coding sessions. Okay, since we have some basic idea of the layout of the Bootstrap, then we'll start coding on each individual elements inside this section, inside this websites. So first of all, we can see the first item that we are looking into is a navigation bar. So what's so important is about navigation bar is that when a user enter your website and then you have a multiple contents, and some of them they only want to look for a certain topic or certain sections of your websites. So in this case, you can choose which. So in this case, you can just have a navigation bar over here, and then to start with your navigating of the users. So in Bootstrap, they have already provide you a very nice navigation bar. So you can come to the Bootstrap documentation at the left-hand side, and then you go to the name bar. So there are a couple of different navigation bar available. So we'll start from the very basic first of the navigation bar. So we will just remove the button and make it empty again. So to start with the navigation bar, we start with the nav tag. And here for the navigation, if you want to start with the navigation, you need to declare you want to use the navigation bar, which is called as a nav bar, as suggested. So we'll simply just copy it over. All right. And in here, because we want to align it in a very fluid way, so we have we call it as a container fluid, so we can adjust them dynamically. Okay, so now we have a name bar, but because we don't have any content yet, so if you execute, it's actually simply just a very empty. So first thing, when you come to a website, you want to have one of your logo. So in Bootstrap documentation, you can have a name bar brand. It can be a logo or be a text. So for our use case, we're just the text of the Amy Young as an example. So you want the link to be clickable. So in here, we will use the anchor tag, and then we'll click on name bar brand, and then we'll put some of the hyperlink of this, and then we'll put it as Amy Young. All right, so let's execute again. Yeah, now we have one of the Amy Young over here. And then next, so we want to show some of the menus of different items. So in a Bootstrap, it uses the on order list. So first of all, you can use the order list tag. And then in here, you can, because we want to start with the navigation bar, so you'll use the name. So you simply display multiple menus of your items. And in here, and then we want to show a different category and different sections. Then we will use a list of items and then define it as this will be a name item. Okay. Then we want it to be clickable. So here we'll use you set the anchor tag again to make the class clickable. Name link. And then we will key some of the hyperlink. So in here, we want to have an about section, and then we'll declare a link to the about ID, which will create it later on, and then click on about. So now we execute again. Now we have some of these menu at the right-hand side. So we have to have a little bit more of the items because we have more sections that I want to show off ourselves. So in here, we can click on it. So we also want to have, for example, some of our portfolio and the past project we have done so far. Portfolio. And the last one is how to contact me. And then now we execute again. Now we have some of the items over here, but no, it doesn't really look exactly what I want to see it. Sorry, this one I copied wrongly. So it should be a list of items instead of on the list. It should be a list of items, just copied wrongly. Yeah, so I will just delete over here and click it. So now because we are on smaller screen, and then by default, because we are using the list item, so it's not really what the usual menu wants. So how do we make it horizontal? In Bootstrap, they provide another function called navbar expand. So we'll expand all the navigation items into a expanding manner. So we will put it as a navbar expand. over here. So you can see in the documentation, actually there's a large indicator at the back. So it depends on at which point you want it to start expanding. So because in our this webinar, the screen size is a little bit smaller, so we will start expanding from the medium screen. All right, so we'll just here execute, and then we make it a little bit longer. Now we can see that it's currently aligned properly, and we'll be able to see some of the navigation bar. But then now, I don't like this color. I want it to have a slightly lighter color without all this hyper blue thing. So another thing is they do for Bootstrap, they have this kind called navigation bar light. So you can quickly click it over. And you can see now, yes, we have a much nicer color at this. But then now, if we want to adjust to a smaller screen, you can see that the menu bar becomes vertical again. Ideally, if you are using a mobile phone, you want it to have a menu icon to click over, and then to expand the menu for the user to click. So how can this be achieved? So for the Bootstrap, they provide this thing called navigation toggle, where it will create a hamburger menu for you and then expand the menu. So this section, you can simply just copy over from the navigation toggle. So you can see this is the part we will be using. You will create a hamburger menu. So it will be just right after your icon itself. So after we copy over, we beautify a little bit. So in Codeflight, they do have this beautify, so you can realign your texts. But for this one, although we have a button over, but it doesn't really link to our navigation, which is we call it a navbar supported content. So we need to link it over to our navigation bar. So how can this be achieved? We'll then create another collapsed items, which will collapsing all the submenu with the ID of navbar supported contents. So in here, we'll copy it over. And then we will put all our menu items into these sections. And then let's beautify again. And then let's execute. Ta-da! Now, we now have a hamburger menu right now. So if let's say the screen is of a smaller one, you will be inside, and then when you click on it, you will be in the drop-down menu. But if you can see that currently it becomes toward the left-hand side. So we want to push everything to the right-hand side. So how can we achieve that? So inside the navbar we will put in a margin with the start. In the older version of Bootstrap, you can indicate as a left or right using ML or MR. But then in the latest version of a Bootstrap, instead of using left and right, they use the start or the end. So in here, we're pushing all the items of a navigation towards the right-hand side, meaning the margin will be at the left. So we'll be at the beginning. So we'll put on ms-auto. Now we'll be execute again. And then we make it larger. Now we have a very nice menu bar over. So this is just a prototyping and we haven't designed yet. So we'll just do all the elements first and then we'll start applying some of the design later on. Now we have already done the first sections on the navigation bar. Now we want to showcase of our beautiful faces and I want others to get know about us a little bit more. So another cool function about Bootstrap is that they provide this function called Carousel. So Carousel, you can have multiple slides of pictures into your own website. So you can see from the documentation at the left, we provide a few options like we want to have a slide only and then auto swipe it on its own. Or the user can have some final controls of the elements that they are using. So in here, this is one of the examples that you can clickable and then move to the next one. Or you can have some of the indicator. So for today's courses, we will be using the slide with a little arrow so user can change a few photos if they want to. So to kickstart with having a carousel and a section. So for this, we will create a new sections for our own photo. Okay, So in this one, we will have sections with the ID photos. Now, we'll just simply copy over one of the samples code provided by Bootstrap. Okay, currently because there is no image so far, so what we can do is that you can go back to our documentations. We have already provided some of the image URL that you can just copy and paste over to see how your outcome will be like. So we will copy 2 of the images. Okay. So we'll just use 2 images as an example. Let's click on run again. Now we can see that we have a very nice photo that has already been shown on our website, and you can see something is sliding over to the next picture. So we want to elevate like some of the final controls, for example, let us for the user to click on. So for Bootstrap, they have a very nice button for you, which is the previous button and then the next button. So what you can do is just simply copy on this button, and then immediately after the carousel in sections, then you copy it and then we beautify again. And then you can see that the button is actually controlling these elements called carousel example control, which is this one. So we will copy this element's name over to this so that it will control our these slides, our carousel slides. So after we click, and now we can see that we have a very nice clickable arrows at both sides for the users to click on and to view our pretty faces and nice pictures. And next, since we have already have our navigation bar and also some picture carousels, and we want to decide a little bit more about ourselves, so we will create another new sections. So called about. So we create new sections, ID with about. And we will use similarly, we want the container to be fully and adjust according to the maximum width of the size. So we are using a container fully over here. And then we will be putting some of the header about me. And of course, some of the descriptions. So inside the Codeflight, they do provide some of the dummy data that you can use. So you can go to the orange HTML5 buttons over here. You click on it. They do have Laura Ibsen's dummy data for you to see some of the content. And then you can see how many words you want to choose. So in our case, we will put 100 words over here. So it populates automated populate some of the data. And then when you run it, you can execute. Now we have some of the information available. Now we have about me and also some of the contents. And moving on, the next item we are looking into is portfolio. So we want to showcase some of our portfolio and the past projects that we work on. Then in this case, we will be building with a few items. First of all, we want to use the cuts. So one of them is with the image on the top. So basically just a container to wrap up the contents that you want to show. So the one image on the top, and then some of the explanations or the projects at the bottom. So now we are going to apply the similar structures to our next component sections. Let me adjust it a little bit over. Okay, so we'll be a portfolio, and then we'll create another section called portfolio. And then similarly, we will use the navigation bar, container fluid. And then with some of the heading, with the H2, and then open, and then with the portfolio. Okay, so now we are going to keep starting using the card. So for the card here, how we can start using is basically we can declare a div, and then as suggested by the documentation here, there is a card. So we're calling the default cards are written by the Bootstrap. So inside the card itself, there are two elements. So first one is the image at the top. So we can copy over. The first one is the image. And since currently it's empty for the image so far, we will come back to our introductions guide first, and then pick up one of the image that you like. And now I'm going to showcase with some of the photography that I've done so far. Then we will just copy over and then paste it now. And of course, we want to add some of the contents to our website and some of the descriptions and a project name, for example. So we can use a H5 tag, and with we will first of all we'll do a body. We'll do a D class. We need to create a body in order to put all the content inside everything. Then we'll do a H5 tag to show our contents of the project for title. So in here, we'll just do a project 1. Now let's execute again. Now we have a very nice one of the project we can showcase, but somehow I don't really like this design. So how can we do? For Bootstrap, they do have some of the functions, like you can change the background color, you can change the border, and also some of the styling. So for here, we are going to change. We don't want to show the border here, and then we want to speak about a little bit of shadow. So we can click on here, and then we execute again. Now we can see that there's a slight shadow over here, and then I want to put some of the text into the center instead of showing a line to the left. Then we run it again. Now we have one example so far. But let's say if we have a lot more project and we don't want to just show one, then assuming that we'll just copy another second project that we have done, then we run it again. Now we can see that we have a 2 project right now. However, you can see that the alignment is not really very correctly aligned, and even if you expand, you will see that it's still in one item in every row. So this is not what we want to apply. Then for Bootstrap, they do have a very nice so-called grading systems that you can apply. So for Bootstrap, it's running on the row and the column system. So for every row that we do some of our explanation here. So let's say by default, if you have a row and a column, if you didn't specify any sizing of it, you will have them equally over each individual column. But let's say if you want to have it, some of them a little bit bigger and some of them a bit smaller, how can this be achieved? So for Bootstrap 5, for every row, they have 12 columns in total. So you can just specify how many portion of the elements you want to occupy out of the 12. So in this case, if you execute again, you can see that it occupied 3 out of the 12, and the next one, because we occupy a bit more of a column 6, so it's actually twice the size of the previous column 3. But then in this case, if you resize it again, it actually doesn't really help you. If let's say you have a lot of contents or the words, everything will just be narrow. So ideally, if let's say it becomes smaller screen, you want to realign the sizing. So how can this be done? So for Bootstrap, they come out with, if it's at a larger screen, I want to occupy 3 elements out, 3 columns out of the 12. And if you want at a medium screen, which is about the iPad size, and then we want to have a 4 out of the 12, which each row will have 3 elements. If at a smaller screen, which usually refer to the phone size, I want to occupy 6 out of the 12, meaning that there will be 2 items in a row. So that's the technical actions and execute again. So now if we have a bigger screen, because we get a large, we want 3 items of the 12. So we can say we have 4 elements in total. So if we scale it to a smaller one, because we want to add a 4 elements. If we divide by 3, they will be divide by 12. So you have 3 items in a row. And then we'll go, and then by default, if you didn't specify anything, it will just be 1 item in a row. So how we can apply this to our cards components? So in here, so first of all, because we are using the grading system, so we want to have a row first, and then followed by some of the column. Okay, now we can copy some of our projects in. And since I can beautify again. Okay, so in here, after we beautify again, we can see that we have all this very nice here, but currently because we didn't specify on a larger screen how I want it to be like. So for example, if let's say I'm a larger screen, I want larger screen, I want it to have showcase only 3 items in a row, meaning that it will occupy 3 items, means okay, 4, a size of 4. And then if I have a medium screen, I only want it to showcase 2 items. So in this, we will be having a size of 6. All right. So we can copy this a little bit over to more items to see how the outcomes. Okay, so we will be deleting this one without this, and then let's execute again. Okay, now, because we are currently at a bigger, smaller screen. So if we adjust it, you can see that now we have some very nice alignment over, and we can showcase that, oh, this is all the project we have done, and then we can align it. So in here, we can see that there's a little bit of, for example, when you add a smaller screen, you see there's no gap over here. So for Bootstrap, they do have this thing called gutters, where you can apply the paddings over be at the y-axis or the x-axis. So for our case, we're putting on the y-axis because in here we can see this is empty. So we'll just put on GY with the size 4. And then let's run again. Now, if we can see at a smaller screen, we can have a very nice project alignment for our show of our websites. And lastly, we want to put some of the contacts our own self. So we will just create a last sections, which is called the contact sections. Okay. Contact ID contact. And then similarly, we'll also use the container for it, such as alignment. And in here, we'll be using an icon for using Font Awesome to get all the resources we need. So we can simply click on this, and then we can choose what are the stuff that you're looking for. The icon, for example, today I want to put some of my linking. Yeah, so this is a linking logo over here. But by default, because we're using Codeflight, it doesn't have a font size, Font Awesome available. So we can go back to the setting over here and then click on Font Awesome. And then we save it so that we will have the Font Awesome ready to be used. So this is the linking logo that we have. So you can see here, they do have the HTML code. So we can just copy it. And inside our code, we want it to have to be the icon to be clickable. So we'll create an anchor tag first. And then with some of the href, like for example, linking. And then inside here, we can apply our icon over. Can execute again. And you can see here it's kind of small, and then we also forgot to put some of these sections, the header over. So we will we want to make it a little bit bigger. So in this for Font Awesome, you can just have how many pixels you want. So your 3 pixel, 5 pixel. So in our case, we just put it as a 3 pixel. Okay, Now we have a very nice linking over here. So you can add as many as a logo that you want, but we just put one as first and then we can move on. So in your practice later on, you can add a little bit more of the of your contact into your websites. Now, currently we have everything nicely being done over. We have all the things, but the design is just kind of not really nice. And then we see everything is too narrow. So we need to add a little bit of a styling through the CSS. So how can this be done? So inside the Codeflight, we can open up the CSS sections. You can, first of all, if you are on a full screen of HTML, you can minimize it, and then the CSS will be popping up. So in here, we want to apply some of the margins to our website. So we can have some container. So all of our margin is using on a container. So we can just apply the paddings into our container fluid. So we can add some of them, 1% to the top and bottom, and then 10% to the left and right. So we execute again. Now, we have a very nice padding towards 4 sides of each container fluid. Then how we are going to remember, it's still not nice. I want to have a fancy font. So this is where the Google Fonts come about. So you can just click on Google Fonts. You can select a few of the fonts, and then you can just select the styles, and then they will just populate. And you can just, there's an import functions, and you just can copy over. So for our case, we have already choose the font size that we want. So we will just simply copy it over and then import into our CSS. Now, as a Google font, they also have to describe how you can use this. So in our case, previously, we would apply all these fonts onto different Bootstrap elements. So for this, we will be the brand. So we'll apply the nav bar brand. And then I want it to be a little bit of a cursor on an email, for example. And then we execute again. Yes, now we have a nicer one. And then for the nav bar, I want it to have a different font. Now we can use another one called Oswald. And then we click on it. Now we can see the nav bar nav item has already changed. And then we also want to apply onto our header. Currently, it doesn't really look very nice. Now we can also apply. Lastly is the formatting. All right. Now, we have a very nice website so far. And of course, you can further extend it not only to your personal website and also to some of the product designs and also to some of the more of a professional websites. So today's course is basically just basic instructions on how you can use Bootstrap to come up with your own personal website with a different, for example, like by just changing the font and changing the sizings and using some of the icons available online to build your own personal websites. So I think it's currently a bit running out of time. So I will just finish up the demo over here, and then I will open up to the floor to have some of the Q&A sessions. Yeah. I will just stop sharing.
Great. Thank you so much. At this time, we're going to open the floor for any questions. Feel free to submit them via Q&A. I know a couple of questions have been answered. So if you have any more questions, feel free to submit them in the chat or via Q&A. I do know we're running up on time, so happy to share some contact information for Ria and Aishwarya. You can reach out to them directly if you have any questions, as we are running up on time. But we are happy to take a couple minutes if anyone does have any questions at this time. Oh, and I sent them directly, not to everyone. Okay, yeah, I just sent along their emails if anyone has any follow-on questions. An anonymous attendee just asked, I joined a bit late. I was curious if the code will be available to us afterwards.
Okay, so for this, okay, yeah. So inside our documentations, I will just reshare them over. So for this Bootstrap. Okay, so inside our course, inside this, we have the final example of the code. So you can basically just copy them over into the Codeflight or your personal websites, and you can just immediately see how the effect is.
Absolutely. Perfect. And now Shay has another question. As a beginner, is it best to learn HTML, CSS separately or to learn Bootstrap up front?
Bootstrap is built on top of HTML, CSS, so it would be better if you can get started with that. Because I think the way I would suggest is you still need to learn the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript basics, at least the basics, and then you can learn one framework, be it Bootstrap or React or Angular or whatever, because the framework keeps changing, but the underlying concepts remain same. So if you try learning the three basic building blocks, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you should be able to pick up any framework quite easily and then build up on top of that. Bootstrap and okay, so I'm trying to answer what is Bootstrap used for. Is React better than Bootstrap? There's no one size fit all answer. It always depends on your use case. So if your website is mostly static, like we built a personal website where the content is not changing continuously in a matter of milliseconds, and the look and feel and all is very important, then Bootstrap is a good use case for that. Twitter is built on top of Bootstrap. In fact, Bootstrap was written at Twitter in early 2010, and later they open sourced it. So that's a good use case for that. React can be a good use case where your pages are highly dynamic. So you are designing a game and there's a ball moving on the screen, the position changes continuously, or maybe the maps where you have to show a moving car on the map. So for those, React is a very good use case. Having said that, Bootstrap is a framework, React is a JavaScript library. So if you want a complete website, highly dynamic, you will probably have to use a combination of both. Hope that answers the question.
Absolutely. And we did have another question come in about whether or not they'll get the YouTube channel or the recording, but yes, it will be posted to the YouTube channel. Normally takes about 5 days to get up there, but I just passed along the link in the chat as well. And we did just get a response. That was a great answer. So thank you for that question and thank you for that answer. Does anybody else have any other questions at this time? We connect on LinkedIn.
Of course.
Of course. Yeah. Sounds good. If you want to post your LinkedIn in the chat, feel free to. And grab those links. And if nobody has any other questions, I invite you all a huge thank you to both of our speakers here, whether or not it's the evening or the morning, the afternoon. Thank you for joining us on behalf of Women Who Code. And thank you so much for the incredible demo. It was very resourceful and useful and exciting to see it live. So as I'm not sure if you guys are watching the chat, but everyone's saying a big thank you to both of you. So thank you so much on behalf of Women Who Code for being here. And we can go ahead and pass along. If you guys have your LinkedIns, if not, I can send them out later. You can feel free to post those in the chat.
Send it to you later. Thank you for the opportunity. We enjoyed it as much as you enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you all. See you again next time.
Thank you. See
Bye.
you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.